just for a moment?
You can put it just down below there, those shelves underneath it.
Oh, there, okay. I think we have a quorum. Are we live? Oh, wow. Millions of people will probably be seeing us.
They at least have the opportunity.
At least have the opportunity. Alana, are we all here? Okay. Good morning. I will officially call the annual meeting of the Immanuel Church 2022. I will call it to order. The first thing on your agenda, does everybody have a copy of the agenda from the back of the church? Okay. Why don't you take a few minutes, unless you've already perused it earlier, and review the minutes, which should be on the second and third page.
I'll just let you know that we put out this handy dandy microphone, so if anybody wants to talk for any length of time, that way the people watching online can hear you. So we have a handy dandy microphone right here for you.
We have boy, that was quick. That wasn't even a minute. We have a motion on the floor to approve the minutes of the 2021 annual meeting. We have a second. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Minutes are approved. Treasurer's report. Charles, before you start, our treasurer for the last, has it been 2 years already, Charles? 2 years, yeah. 2 years. Before Charles took over, we had a wonderful treasurer that did it for, Bruce, how many years? 25. How many? 25 years. And this church is still standing and physically in great shape. And Charles thankfully took over at like all of the council members that serve year after year. We do it at no expense, and Charles has done the same and done a wonderful job. The only thing I've had to do with Charles on every council meeting is, Charles, are we still okay? And Charles would always say, we're still okay. Well, with that, Charles, I'll let you take over. You can come up here if you like, if you'd rather come up here.
Particularly. Yeah, this will do. Actually, Arnie, can you hear me all right?
Yes. You're going to need the mic or they won't hear you.
Okay, all right. Well, don't tempt me. Well, everything that you could possibly want, I think, is in here. I just want to say that I don't intend to serve in this position for 25 years or anything like that. I've been working very hard getting everything computerized so the next person just have to just push in things. It's just it's a pain in the behind, I'll tell you what. But all the treasurer really does is bookkeeping. Now, so, I don't approve expenses here or anything of that sort. I just keep the books. So, anyway, there's a real good, I think, breakdown of how things are going in the work here in the treasurer's report. And if you have any questions, I'll be delighted to answer them. The only thing that I really want to say is we've had, there've been hard times certainly with the pandemic and all of that kind of stuff. But I am astonished at how faithful and prudent this congregation is, and obviously has been for a long time. We are sitting in a situation where every dollar that you are giving is worth 7% less than it was, okay? I am increasing my giving, to, actually I'm a little behind, so I'm gonna go more than 7%, but, if your wall is baptized, you'll recognize your church is going to need that. That's part of the reason we're a little behind. But we're in good shape, thanks to, as I say, the faithfulness, incredible faithfulness of this congregation by every measure that I have. You, God's church in Whitewood, astonish me. So, any questions? Oh dear.
I think this is a wonderful report. The only thing I'm missing that I would like to see is what the general fund balance was during the balance we have in the general fund.
I thought we had that in here.
Where?
Page 15 there, the general fund income, the expenses, the deficit on page 15, is that what you want?
Well, no, how much money is in the general fund itself? I can see the change from year to year, but how much money do we have in the general fund?
Well,
200,
Right.
it would be the,
yeah, well, we've got the operating accounts is
Yeah, but that's
the,
what I'm talking about.
I guess I don't understand. We've got the operating funds, that's the money that,
I know I'm all aware of it.
all right, yeah, well, that's the thing, you're
But you've
you're
got
better,
the-
more
you've
aware of
got
all
the
of this.
amount of money in all the designated
What?
funds here, right? On the
Yeah.
second page.
Right,
You've got all the designated funds.
right.
Where is the general fund?
Well, the general fund is
Anything-
on 14.
No, it isn't.
You're not calling it general fund, you're calling it the operating account.
Yeah, that's,
Just not being mistaken.
I think that's probably right, that, and that may be different from when,
No, but
okay.
anything that isn't designated is general.
oh, I understand that.
Yeah.
Obviously, I understand that.
Oh.
But the total funds that you have on hand have to equal the amount you have in your account balances.
Well, yeah, I haven't, you got me at a disadvantage. I don't, yeah. By which, I mean, I don't understand what you're saying, asking, accusing, what? What is it that's not balancing up here?
You don't have your accounts aren't balancing up with how much money we have. The money has to be someplace. I'll talk to you.
Yeah, you can educate me on that. That's something that, Pastor, do you understand what?
I do.
Okay.
What I put in the account balance section there is just to show you what's in the bank, so you can see the investments and all that stuff, so you can see what we have there. So that the left-hand column, that's what that is on page 14. The general fund line from the top there, so the account balance wouldn't include checks that hadn't cleared yet as of the end of the year. So the money we have here, we actually have less total money than's there because at the end of each month, we send off the missions money that's a percent of whatever came in. So some of those hadn't cleared yet that would be out of that. But I can, I know what you mean, and I didn't put that as one of those designated funds. I was just listing those, but I can do that.
Well, you're making way more complicated on that. How much money do we have in our general fund?
$182,000 or $219,000 minus $83,000, whatever that is. So 100 and
That's the point, though, you have to make,
right. Well, we had him pull the general fund, so the general fund wasn't always showing all the investment funds, because then it goes up and down every week, or every day, actually, because of the stock market. We had him pull those out and make an operating world that we were basically operating as the operating fund, and but we didn't, we considered our investment funds rather than just money to spend, even though we're going to have to start spending it. But the numbers we asked him to show weren't throwing all the investment money in with the general fund money so that it looked like we had more money to spend than we did. Kind of keep the council under control that way. But that's what it is. It's a change in the way we show this stuff in the reports. But it's not a hard... Well, it all depends on if you want to spend your investment money or not. In the bank, as of the end of the year, we had $37,000. Right now, we have less than 10 in our checking account after those missions and whatever the end of the year money cleared and the money that's been coming in January. But I looked at the account this week. I was on to look at something, and so if you consider all the money in the investment accounts, general fund money that we can spend for everything, we have almost $200,000 to spend. You know, if you consider that money that we're saving for a rainy day, or then we have much less than that. And we had them for council purposes, we wanted to just put the investments in another pot, set them aside. Basically the way you see them here, the investment accounts are set over here. The operating account is the money that we play with on a regular basis, writing checks, and so that's the money that, in terms of the way the council's been functioning, that's what we consider our general fund money, is what's in their operating fund. The other money is undesignated money in investment accounts. So it's undesignated money, but wouldn't be considered money that the council would spend on an average month. Yes, sir?
So is the designated money that's listed in these designated funds, is that actually in the investment accounts?
It's all a part of all of our money, yeah.
The council doesn't touch that money.
Understood. I'm just wondering where it is.
Yeah.
Well, we do.
That's more money than is in checking and savings combined.
Yeah.
So it's got to be somewhere.
We spend that money that's designated, we can spend most of it. It's just a matter of things. The only thing we can't spend is the endowment. Does that get your answer? And we can go back to reporting it differently if you want, if that's helpful, where we throw that all in. It's just that the general fund fluctuates with the stock market, and for that, right after the pandemic, it went way down, and it wasn't showing, it was looking like we were losing lots of money, but and in some ways we were losing lots of money, but the theory was we wanted to separate those two so it wasn't always, the general fund wasn't fluctuating so much, just based on the gyrations of the market.
Well, it sounds to me like you want another line item. Yeah. Oh. Okay, well,
I'm only trying to figure out how you can balance your books without doing that.
well,
And the reports, I can give you, what I tried to do, this isn't what he gives us. This is what I put together to make it easy for us, in theory. at this meeting. You know, I get an 8-page report from him that we, yeah. And there's a number on there that show, you know, like I said, we had them pull those two. So it shows if you add up the operating and the general funds together, you get, or the investment and the operating funds. And the goal is to not have a lot of designated funds. The goal is to spend that, and we still debate about, you know, how to treat the endowment, because it's really not a true endowment in the sense that we're spending it. But we do have all the money in TD Ameritrade, which would be the Vanguard stock and or ETF and the Exxon stock and the little bit of cash that's there. That's endowment money. We just stuck it all in one place so you could kind of see it go up and down. And then the Thrivent stuff is just cash. That's just money we can spend. It's just general fund money, you know, or undesignated money mostly. And you see some of that went down. Our safe money went backwards last year. That, you know, in theory, short-term bonds are as safe as you can get, and that's the little part, but it didn't go backwards very much. It kept the stability where the stocks went up a little bit. But. So, yeah,
Well,
maybe.
I'm not embezzling any money, but if there's a way that you would rather see it put out, no, but I'm saying if there's a way that you would prefer it to be presented, I bow to your 25 years of experience, and I don't have any problem at all. Well, I might have difficulty, but I sure will do whatever I can, you know, because I don't know how to do, you know, what you want done, but I'm prepared to learn.
I'm only asking how much money's in the general fund, that's all I was asking. That's all right.
Yeah, I think that I think that we've got different definitions of.
Okay, yeah, let's go.
Okay, anything else?
Can I ask Pastor a question?
Sure.
Would you mind it? You
No.
know, in years past, we had financial statements from the women's group, we had it from the youth group. Did we do away with those?
The women, Shelley asked me after I asked her, that she didn't turn one in, and I didn't ask for one because ultimately they're not accountable to us when we discussed whether there needed to be one. As long as she's accountable to the women, that's the question. The youth didn't spend any money this year, so it's the same as last year. But no, I didn't put it in. With the youth ones kind of come and go depending on if we take a big trip, I want to be accountable for where all the money went. But if we're not spending any money of any consequence. So that's why it wasn't a conscious decision other than Shelley gave a report to the women. They spent their money. They didn't have a fall dinner this year, so they didn't have a lot of movement either with money. And I think that's a done thing anyway. So, but they can decide if they want to have their report in the annual report or not, and that's up to them, really. But no, it wasn't on purpose other than, like I said, we were putting it together and I hadn't gotten anything, and I didn't call her, and then we visited, and I said, ultimately, they don't need to be accountable to us for what they spend their money, but they can be if they choose to be. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm just asking that because I've always thought that our money should be accountable for.
Yeah.
And this is just an example, and I don't care, and it doesn't make any difference. But in the Outreach and Nurture Committee report, there's an income total of $1,757 from the craft sale. And they purchased $866.26 worth of items for the closets. They have $890.74 left. Where is that money?
Well, I told Charles to put it in special local mission rather than create a
Oh,
separate
yeah,
line
it's
item.
a special local mission.
Yeah.
I just couldn't see where.
Yeah. Just to try to reduce the number of.
But we have a special local mission in our budget.
And we're taking that out this year.
Okay, because we also have it in our,
Yeah. It's in the mission, in the mission budget, but we haven't been spending enough of it to justify keeping it as a mission. at this point until we do. So it is an income item and goes in there, but it, like you said, you see there's almost $12,000 in it, and there wasn't, council was having trouble coming up with ways to get rid of it, and so we just decided it's kind of silly to keep throwing money into a designated fund. We should be using it in some positive way. So, and then we could we did the same thing with the contingency fund. We stopped putting money into it, thinking, we were always saving for the boiler that was going to just break someday, and we got a new boiler and didn't spend any of that money. So we thought it's still good to have emergency savings, and how much we keep in there. Does that make sense? So Charlie doesn't, they have, what, $600 or something with the women?
No, with the check that you gave us for $600 for Kim's funeral, I think it was, it bumps it up to, I don't have the exact amount, but probably over $2,000.
Right.
Probably like maybe 2,200.
Yeah, and the women were running a little tight, and so they asked the congregation for some support, and so we gave them some money from Special Local Mission to help with Kim Ridley's funeral, just because that was a big expense for them.
It's my policy never to mess into the women's business. I made it real clear to the council.
Anything else from the congregation for treasurer's report? Any more questions? Motion to approve?
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes for the 2021 treasurer's report. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Pastor's report.
You've seen my written report, and I know that some of you have read it. I just want to highlight a couple things as we go through. Last year we had our centennial, which was a big deal, and we were, spent a lot of time and energy making that happen. And I said one of my real goals for that was to get a history written. We managed to do that so that at least we honor the past before we forget the past. So that was part of the intent there. So that, and then I used that kind of as a theme for my report. The theme that the committee chose was built on faith, and it was, as I mentioned there, it was done for a number of reasons. One was we already had the banner done, so it was easy, and another one was that we felt it really did express a lot of the history of the congregation, and that's one of the things I saw, especially in digging through the books, is that this church is, for most of its history, probably until the last maybe 10 years, had teetered on the edge of insolvency for most of its life. And in that sense, believing that there was a future for it, believing that God needed a congregation here, and building on that. And we've been blessed in the last 10 years, really, especially in the years since we left the ELCA, with a lot of resources. That's part of why our investment accounts have gotten so big. It's not because we're good investors. It's because for a lot of years we had way more money coming in than we were using either for ministry here or in supporting ministries beyond ourselves. And that's been true basically until the pandemic. And I don't know if it's the pandemic that caused a little more of a deficit, that we started spending some of our savings, some of the other money in the general fund, or if that's means something else. And so I use that as part of the pointing that theme from the history to talk about some of what's going on now. But of course, the church isn't just finances. I was thinking about other areas that are, causes for concern. I had somebody tell me my report kind of was sad, and it seemed sad, which it maybe is. We dropped Sunday school this year, decided that it wasn't worth doing. The council decided that, and that's a sad piece. The happy piece is we've got 20-some kids here every Wednesday that we're reaching out to and doing some good things with. We're still only serving maybe a quarter of our own members' kids, which is kind of sad, but that's another thing, and that has to do with culture and certain things and parenting and all other kinds of other stuff. But so those are the kind of the main themes. There's some of the stuff with education. Wanting to point out the finances, I did put a lot of that in because I had been kind of watching that, but it wasn't until I was running some of the numbers and looking and thinking, we're a little tighter than we probably should be. We've had, and the council said, we've had plenty of money. It's like, thinking general fund, we're still sitting around, $150,000, which sounds like we got lots of money, but our income is way lower than our expenses, or the other way around. Our expenses are way higher than, no, that was right. Our income is lower than our expenses are higher than our income. Both of those are true, unfortunately. So just wanting you to be really aware of that. I don't think the council's wrong, as Charles is good at reminding us a lot, that the purpose of being a church isn't to collect money. Jesus said a lot of stuff about that, about not storing up your treasures on earth. And so being faithful in what we do with the resources God trusts us with, now. Jesus doesn't say, have a good investment account and store lots of money. He talks about doing things with ministry. He talks about, investing your treasure in the things of the kingdom. And so that's where we've just stayed. We haven't pulled back anything. You see we've expanded. We've added 2 positions recently, in part with the kids program, and adding Linda's position. And so we've increased our expenses considerably that way, but the total amount of income hasn't. And I don't think it's a wrong thing for the church to use the resources we have, rather than just panic and pull back. So that's kind of where that is. The other stuff you've seen is a lot of the stuff that I say most years. A big thank you to everyone for what you do for the sake of our congregation and being a community of faith here, and thank you for that. And hear that part. Don't let that part disappear. And always hear the confession too, because all of us rest as sinners in the hands of a loving God, that we have to always remember that. So, any questions for me? If not, I will sit down.
Thank you, Pastor. Committee reports, and I see property, building and church property is mine, and Gail Haymeyer's, of which, of course, I suppose you all know, Gail and I are both leaving council this year, and will be replaced by 2 people that are well qualified that are being nominated. I want to bring up just a couple of quick things. You can read the report, and I think it's fairly concise. I didn't put anything on there about the green grass that we have around the church, other than the new sprinkling system that was installed this last year. For the last couple of years, we've had a couple of volunteers that have done that work at no expense. And if you look at the budget, you'll see that it's up to $3,500 for this next year, and snow removal is just a little over $500 for this last year from Mike Wyrick. So the rest is going to go for contract lawn mowing. But I would be remiss if I wouldn't thank Wayne Kuntz for helping these last couple of years. And Wayne and I, in a heartbeat, would do it again this year, but we're both fighting health issues. Wayne's a lot more serious than mine. But that's why we're not going to mow this year. And so with that, one other thank you. I didn't put it in because I thought, well, that's in the worship committee and the music. But Paul and Mimi Swisher donated us a wonderful grand piano that the choir uses every week when we sing and practice. What a beautiful gift that Mimi and Paul have given this church. And I wish Paul was here. Paul shares his Dr. MD stuff with me every day, and get in the Bible study. And I wished he was here, but Mimi, pass that on to Paul. It is a godsend what you've done. A church without music. A church without music and singing is not church. And Sunday is the most important day of the week for me. It makes me want to go to church because I want to get through the next week. And as bad as I feel today, I feel elated that I think the church is in good shape, and I hope it continues that way. I worry. We all have a lot of gray hair here, and I worry about that. But I know this church will survive. We've only been here for 100 years, and so I know they can make it another 100 years. With that, I will outreach.
Everyone has a copy of my report. I think we did well. You know, there's always room for improvement, of course. If anyone has any questions for me, I'm open to try to answer them. I do want to talk about the Mission Craft Sale. It was phenomenal. The money, well, we didn't give any money to the schools because that's not allowed. Or we were highly encouraged not to give them money. So Cindy and I went shopping, and we purchased some clothing and items that was on their request list. And then we contacted our local grocery store in Sturgis, and he gave us a discount on the food items that we purchased, and the food items were divided between 2 schools. We did get a thank you note from the high school, and I actually got a hug twice from Pam at the high school because I made 2 deliveries out there. But the school seemed very appreciative. And our plan, the money that's left, the $800 and some, we're hoping in a few months to replenish the food aspect. They've been, counselors, social workers have been contacted. If you have a family, a student who needs help, please talk to me or Cindy, and we'll see what we can do to help those people out. The church's response to the craft sale, the 2 times we've had it, has been phenomenal. One, people making stuff, baking, whatever, and the other one's people buying items, in my opinion, way beyond what they're worth, but it's all greatly appreciated. So if anyone has any questions for me? Hearing none, I'm going to go back in my corner.
Thank you, Linda. Worship committee and the choir. Toby's gone today. You have anything, Joanne, to add? I came to this church, I can't remember how many years ago, but I knew right away that music was important to this church. Sometimes I'll nudge my wife when we sit back in the pews, and I say, Pastor picked another song with 6 verses. That's the first time I probably told the pastor that. But this is a singing church, and I think it's a wonderful thing with the music we have, with Mimi accompanying and Joanne playing the organ and playing the piano when Mimi is gone. I love this church. Unless we have any questions for music, let's move on to continuing business. And I'll turn that to Pastor. Do we have any continuing business?
I don't think so.
Anybody have anything to add for continuing business? New business. One I put down myself was cleaning up the crawl space in our basement. We've got about 2,500 feet of dirt for a crawl space that for many years has been used. part of it at least for storage from various projects over the years. Wayne and I and Derek Bessler in the last year or so, we've cleaned up a lot of it, but and we have a moisture problem in the summertime. Pastor has to take care of 2 dehumidifiers all summer long to pull water out of the basement. And the musty smell, and I thought, let's get Blackburn Basements in to give us the estimate. And probably like everybody else, the price is pretty high. $16,000 to put a 20 mil heavy-duty, guaranteed rip and tear resistant covering that seals up that crawl space. Seals it to the point that it's even got water detectors built into it that if we had a leak from obviously plumbing pipes that are up in the floor joists of the crawl space area, it would set off an alarm. So we'd know fairly quick that we have a leak from plumbing. Wayne Kuntz and Derek Bessler and myself spent quite a lot of time repairing and remodeling our 2 bathrooms upstairs for a leak that probably had been leaking from the men's urinal for many years until it ruined part of the floor and the wall, and we had to make a repair, and it turned out really nice. Doris still hasn't forgiven me yet for the toilets we put in there, but somehow I think maybe she has forgiven me. Oh, okay. Well, I thought about having like a concierge or something that stand by the door in the women's bathroom for whoever needed help, but I thought better of that. Oh, yes, the seats. Now, even Wayne and I had trouble installing those seats, and thank you, Daryl, for replacing that one.
Those push button washers, one's for number 1, one's for number 2. If you have problems with arthritis or a weak hand, you can't push them. I put a wooden spoon in there on a chain for that reason.
It maybe needs a sign on it saying what it's for, because they probably put it in the kitchen for cooking there.
Well, the last couple of years, property has done a lot of work here at the church, but I think the congregation has been very supportive. New boiler system for heat, new water heater, a more updated irrigation system outside, and remodeling the bathrooms upstairs. These are all things that needed to be done. And of course, they're expensive. And we have like an assistant minister now helping the pastor for, 8 or 9 months out of the year, and council member Britt Porterfield. That's part of the reason he's now being paid as a monthly salary is for the work he's doing. And a lot of it, of course, through the elementary school here where Britt is the principal, bringing young people into the church. Nothing's worse than a church that is full of older people and no young people, because they are slowly going to leave us, and who is going to be to carry on? And every church that's a traditional church has got that worry. Yes?
Well, yours goes back to the plumbing, or to the plumbing issue. I mean, this probably isn't the time, but is that being pursued to see Blackburn, about saving it all? You said at a cost of probably what?
Well, the Blackburn basement gave us an estimate of, I think it's a little over, it's on the back here, around $16,000 to seal the basement crawl space. But part of the issue was everything organic has to be removed. The only thing can be left in that crawl space is dirt or poured concrete, like around the furnace area or the air conditioning that's within the crawl space. And of course, we have things there that likely might want to get put back, like all that wood that we may use sometime in the future for the kids, for the children's Christmas program. I think the last couple of years we haven't used it, And as we all know, we haven't got a very big Sunday school anymore. And Pastor and I talked just briefly after council, I think, about, we have one room that is now dedicated to the ladies for quilting, and in one corner. And the rest are either a small office that is used by the pastor and Alana and Linda for church business, and then the rest are classrooms for Sunday school. And we could remove a lot of that we want to keep, leftover paint, etc., and use it, put it in another room. But do we want to dedicate another Sunday school room to do that? And plus, we all know that hard times are coming. I don't think with a dollar being worth only 70 cents or less in America, inflation, etc., this isn't going to get any easier. And so church finances are going to be an issue where eventually the church will have to go into some of those invested funds to pay the bills. And so, Bruce, I hear you. And I hope everybody understands that we're talking to the generation of people right now that unfortunately some are not going to be here in 10, 15 years, maybe less. I don't know. Pastor, you can talk to that.
Just on a couple things. First, I appreciate all of you, even though you're not young, being a part of the church. And one of the gifts of, just to talk on that just for a second, of Brad Hales, who works in congregational revitalization for the NLC, but he is always, one of his cheerleading things is saying that older people matter, and you are doing ministry when you're dealing with people no matter what their age is, and I try to put that in my report too, that's important ministry, and you live in an area where lots of people retire. That's not a surprising thing to have people that are older. But you go to, Phoenix, some of those big churches in those areas, and they're kind of the same way we are, but they've got 1,000 members. So, just to be mindful that you don't have to be ashamed of being here, and that you do matter in your age, and that's important. And one of the gifts, just a comment, because I'll tell my wife this. One of the gifts of having older people is that's the reason we have all the money we have. Because people that are older tend to not have children and tend to not have a lot of expenses, and also tend to have figured out what matters in life enough to know that giving is important, that they've matured. They don't think childish ways. I'm going to put an end to my childish ways of thinking only about myself, right? So you see that. So there is a gift there as well. One of the gifts of the resources we've had the last 10 years or so is that we have, thanks to a number of people on the board over the years, Ray's responsible for cheerleading, updating all of our electrical stuff. We're almost done with, a transition to LED lights throughout the building. We've done a lot of, pretty much all of the major projects we wanted to do, we just did over the last 10 years. Because we had the resources. And so we're actually out of mostly big projects to do with the building. In answer to Doris's question about the Blackburn, Bob just got that bid. Council had a quick meeting last week because our meeting got canceled last week because we had too many sick folks, or a couple weeks ago for too many sick folks. And he presented the information. They decided we didn't have enough information to bring a proposal here yet. And they're, and to see if there's some less expensive ways to deal with the drainage issues down there. And they're not really too major. I crawled around there enough. And in my conversations with Bob about the basement, I wasn't wanting to get rid of Sunday school. I was wanting to reclaim Sunday school rooms so that we can put stuff, if we clean up the crawl space, we can put stuff up there and use it for what it's for, which is storing junk, and take back Sunday school rooms so that we can use them for kids and hopefully have some growth there in education. So it may or may not be dead, but it's been put to the council and probably will be another year in the next annual meeting, or if they decide to want to do something sooner, something sooner may happen. In terms of cleaning up down there, a lot of what's up there is just little pieces of insulation from when they insulated various places, and it's just thrown there. So I'm going to maybe see if I can get $100 out of the council to pay my confirmation kids to crawl under there and put things in a garbage bag. You know, it probably within an hour they could have it all done, because there's not much under there anymore. So there's some big things that at some point, if we want to put some kind of material under there, we could. But in terms of the amount of garbage that's there is actually not that huge. So did that answer all those things that came up in that little conversation? I hope so. The important thing is to hear that you guys do matter. Even though you're not under 12, people over 12 tend to give better.
Thank you, Pastor, for helping clarify, since I'm one of those old people as well. Next on the agenda, ratification of the NALC Constitution. Do you want to speak to that, Pastor?
Yep. This part can go really quick. The very back page of the report is the changes that are made in the Constitution. Part of being a part of the NALC is that any major decision, which would include amending the Constitution, needs to be ratified on a local level. So all these changes are verbal changes. We're changing things that were generic mission areas to being called specific names, called mission districts, mission regions. That's what this is. So I even put the proposal there, be it resolved that we approve them. And so if you move that and second it, we'll make it happen. Yes, sir.
Just a question.
Yes, sir.
Does this, are you saying that this kind of formalizes the way it was already?
Yeah, it just that it gives a name. That's what we were calling them, but we hadn't changed them in the Constitution. And it adds regions, which some parts of the country where Lutherans are more dense than they are here. The pun was intended. Places like Ohio, for example, where we have, I think it's 5 mission districts, they get together all together as one, and made a region, and they've done that in the Carolinas too, other places where there are lots of Lutherans. So it just officially makes some of those realities that existed officially have the right names in the Constitution. So this is a really simple amendment. It's a formality about being a part of a group like this. Yes?
So with the districts and then these regions, there would not be an increase in the giving to the 25%?
Not necessarily. The mission district, for our mission district is me. I'm the dean for this general area, and it's a big geographic area, but it's actually fairly small. The regions are just, there shouldn't be an increase in expenses other than you'll see in the budget when we get to missions, we're going to try to do a scholarship as our church is just in our area together. And so there's a move and some money that way. But nope, there shouldn't be any expenses related to this because they are all kind of little local things. In some places they do lots of organizations. Some places like here we have less just because we're less dense.
Who made the motion? We have a motion and a second on the floor to accept the NALC constitutional amendments. Any more discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do we have any other continuing business?
I have just one thing I should have said when I did my report. You'll notice a drop in membership. Part of what I did was I cleaned up the roles. When I was looking at the financial stuff, I thought we needed a little clearer sense. So our Constitution and bylaws define inactivity as being substantially uninvolved for a few years, basically, a couple years I think it is. So some of those folks who haven't been at worship for multiple years and live in other places, you'll see if you look at the list that we still have on our list people who have shown up but are not active. So even though you see that fall, but I wanted to have a little more accurate list of how many members we have. So that's just so you know why there was that big drop all of a sudden. It was just getting a little more honest about some people's realities.
Okay, thank you, Pastor. Elections. I want to take just a moment. We have the 2022 Nominating Committee. Of course, Gail, Daryl, Oh, we have a question. Yes, Doris.
I do have a question, and that is about the prayer list. I wish that you could get somebody to go through and remove people that are no longer need prayer. Because, for example, I kind of went through that today, and I know some of these people are well. And we have on here, which is fine, is the little Christensen, and it says infant. Well, has the baby gotten better, or, I mean, and that's been on there for about 2 years now, so it's no baby, and things like that going through here. Here's one I know that's been well for quite some time, is Bird Ward, and there are a lot of those that I think people should take a look at the prayer list and remove them if they've recovered.
And I can answer just in general. It's easy to get on the prayer list. It's harder to get off. And if you if somebody asks me to put them on the list, they stay on the list until they ask me to take them off. I had somebody today say, "You can take me off the list," and so that's kind of how that works. I figure I'd rather err on the side of have you praying for somebody that is needing it. So if you're one of the people to put somebody on that needs to come off, obviously tell me. And sometimes it takes a while to get you on too, depending on how my typing is or if I cut and paste correctly. So, but that's just the quick answer. It's I do change things as they are, but I make the assumption that whoever told me they wanted prayers for whoever it is they wanted prayers for still wants them until they tell me they don't. So that's just my operating procedure there.
Every year,
Yeah. Is he doing okay?
since we do have, basically we have the people that are here most every Sunday that are also here for the annual meeting, and the council does rely heavily on the minister, since he is the one that we all know. He marries us, he carries us, and he buries us. And so he, above all, knows people just as much as we do. And Lynn and I are probably some of the newest members of this church, and we still don't actually know everybody. We know them by name, but do we know them? And we know the ones that are here. So it is hard, and it's a tough decision to, when you look at the membership and take them off and send them a letter. It's hard. And I know Pastor has to look at that, and the council kind of put that on the pastor. It has most every year for him to let us know those that haven't been here. And because I think we pay a percentage of our income. Oh, we don't for those? Okay. So we only pay it for those that are here, correct?
There's no assessments in the NALC, so we only give based on what we want to give. There's no assessments at all. And there weren't in the ELCA either. Well, the little local conference had an assessment, but otherwise those went away in the late 80s.
Okay, moving on. I want to thank the nominating committee, Arnie Belke, Gail Haymeyer, myself, Shelley Iverson, Midge Haymeyer, and Mimi Swisher for serving on the 2022 nominating committee. And as you can see, the nominating committee put forth two names, Bob Haywick and Tony Rath, to take 3-year terms for church council to replace Gail Haymeyer and myself. I personally talked to both of them, and as one of the committee members, and we have one that runs his own private business on one end of town, and another one that helps his son run a business on the other end of town. And so they're both well-versed in what it takes to take care of property. And I think Gail and I are leaving this in good hands if this nomination, if you go ahead and move forward and approve these names for election to a 3-year term of the Immanuel Church Council. I would entertain a motion for either one or both. Is that proper, Pastor?
You have to ask for any nominations
Was that a motion to? Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we put these forward just for your nomination. So do I have a motion?
Or ask if there's any other nominations.
Is
what
there
he
any
said.
other nominations? I didn't think so. Like Marlo Kincaid, a famous mortician, told me years ago when I got my first church council job, he said, not to worry, you'll eventually get your friends back.
I move nominations cease.
And we cast the unanimous ballot for,
Yeah,
Slate.
the nomination should be cast
Linda said that. That's what you meant to
okay,
say,
all right, I
right,
missed
Linda?
that. Did we get a second on that? Yes. Okay. You know, I only have 3 pairs of hearing aids. I might wear 1 pair one of these days. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Now we have Tony and Bob are both nominated.
Elected.
Elected. Boy, you slid that right by me. Well, congratulations. I'm glad both of them are willing to serve. We have, what's left, Pastor?
We have to elect the nominating committee and elect the delegate if we want to do that at this meeting.
The nominating committee for 2023.
Yes.
As you can see, we have Britt Porterfield and Toby Rath because those will be the ones that will be completing their term for 2023. And we have John Iverson, Ardith Peterson, Sharon Storrs, and Carol Verkel. Do I have a nomination? Do I have a motion? Say again.
I would like to move that the 3, or the ones that have been suggested are elected.
We have a motion on the floor that those presented be selected and approved for nomination or election to the 2023 nominating committee. Did we get a second? We have a second. No discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And this year's NALC convention is a virtual one. So we don't have a name for that unless you do now, Pastor.
No, council hasn't brought anybody in. If there's nobody that we want to nominate here, what I'd suggest is that we authorize the council to appoint someone.
Okay. Without anything left on elections, 2022 budget. Any discussion?
Let me just explain some of the changes. Probably the best place to start with changes is on page 18. That's the mission budget. That's the very top of the regular budget. We didn't change the total percentage. Our mission giving is based on a percentage of income, and we've been giving actually pretty well. Almost a third of what comes in we send out for other work around the world. And you'll see there that we left the NALC the same, but we changed the scholarship, the money we support the seminary. We moved 1% of that to a local mission district scholarship. We're going to support a local pastor going to seminary that way together with the other churches in the area. So that's what that is. That's a change that's just moving from one place to another. We also left the giving to other places the same. We did increase the global part and decrease the local part. The global part, you'll see the increase is in the Lutheran Seminary in Ethiopia for the church there. If you've been reading the NALC news or watching some of that online, Ethiopia has been going through a tough time in terms of their world right now, in terms of kind of a civil war that's going on. But the main thing with the seminary is they had a terrible flood that destroyed most of the seminary. And so the NALC, along with other folks around the world, are trying to raise some money to help them rebuild the seminary. So that's part of why that's a significant increase there, and in addition to the budget. The other ones we left, I think, everyone else on, except we pulled the local mission fund And you heard that discussed earlier because we're not getting it all spent. We thought we could let that go for this year, and then we adjusted some of those numbers a little bit. So that's that one. And then the regular budget is pretty much the same as last year. Charles, I should maybe say this part, but I'll say it for him, had suggested that because of the increase of cost of living with inflation, that they did decide to give everyone a 5% raise, including the pastor, so thank you for that. So all of the staff had that experience happen. And yeah, otherwise those are very similar numbers unless anybody has questions. But that's the two main changes, is the change in where some of that mission money goes and the increase on the salary side.
Page 17 shows the total budget for last year and the proposed budget for 2022, 231, 218. I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve the budget as presented.
We have a motion on the floor to approve the budget. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Adjournment. I want to thank everyone for coming. I want to thank you for putting up with the current church council and with myself. And I'm taking about a 2-month hiatus from church. Hopefully, I want you to pray for my wife. Thank you.